There's something stirring in New York. Amid the crowds, the sirens, and the thousands of love stories unraveling on every block, some just beginning, some ending in silence, a presence is moving, not in grand cathedrals or loud revivals, but in quiet, aching hearts. It's the Holy Spirit, not simply visiting, but beckoning. And He's not just calling us to feel something, He's calling us to become something. Love, in its truest form, is not hedonistic. It's not here to give you a high. It's not designed to validate your ego or make you feel seen in the way we often demand to be. Love is holy. Love is weighty. It calls for vulnerability, yes, but also for something more. Commitment, responsibility, and the willingness to suffer for another's good. And this is where the Holy Spirit speaks. In a city like New York, where relationships are often transactional and fleeting, it's easy to reduce love to a temporary comfort, something to consume when we're lonely and discard when it gets too demanding. But that isn't love. That's self-interest dressed in affection. True love is an act of courage. It's a moral decision. And here's where psychology meets spirituality. From a developmental lens, love matures us. It shapes our moral compass. It forces us to consider someone else's well-being equal to, if not greater than, our own. And when the Spirit begins to move in our lives, He doesn't just bring comfort, He brings conviction. He redefines love not as a feeling, but as a force rooted in truth. This love doesn't flinch at flaws. It sees the whole person, their trauma, their darkness, their defensive walls, and still chooses to stay. Why? This kind of love is transformational. It demands discipline. It's forged in self-controlled, in forgiveness, in patience, when emotions scream otherwise. And when we surrender to that process, when we let love break us open, expose us, humble us, that's when identity begins to shift. That's when we no longer love to get something, but to give. That's when we stop asking, what can I take? And begin asking, who am I becoming? Because I love you. But here's the tension. We dream of unconditional love, yet we are painfully aware of our conditions. We long to be loved without measure, yet often struggle to extend that same grace to others. This is where the Spirit speaks the loudest. Not in perfection, but in our honest wrestling. He reminds us that love isn't about finding the flawless. It's about growing together in the furnace of real life. And so, in the broken corners of New York, where hearts ache silently in crowded rooms, the Spirit is calling us back, not to fairy tales, not to infatuation, but to a divine, radical, relentless kind of love, the kind that builds homes in broken places, the kind that sees heaven in heartbreak, the kind that doesn't run, because love isn't just a gift, it's a calling, and it's moving. In a world of ghosted texts and silent goodbyes, love has become a disappearing act. We chase it, we cling to it, we build fragile hopes on digital words in fleeting moments, only to be left in silence. But there's a presence that doesn't vanish, a love that doesn't disappear when things get messy, a Spirit who doesn't run when we're at our worst. The Holy Spirit doesn't ghost you. And in that truth lies the beginning of a radical redefinition of love. You see, our culture often treats love as a fleeting emotion, something we fall into and just as quickly fall out of. We associate love with desire, intensity, attraction, moments that feel good but rarely hold any weight. But love, in its essence, isn't about pleasure. Love, at its core, is about presence. And presence, real, unwavering, costly presence, is an act of will, not just a wave of emotion. Love is a discipline. Psychologically, Love is one of the most powerful forces shaping human identity. It teaches us empathy. It reveals our limits. It demands growth. When we enter into true love, not the romanticized ideal, but the raw, sacrificial kind, it forces us to confront who we really are. It's not about finding someone perfect. It's about seeing someone completely and still choosing to stay. That's what the Holy Spirit does with us. He sees the full scope of our flaws, the hidden motives, the broken patterns, the repeated failures, and still chooses presence. That's divine love. And when we model our relationships after that love, something sacred happens. We begin to love not because we're getting something back, but because we've encountered a higher standard, a holy standard. Philosophically, love is not merely a feeling. It's an organizing principle of human existence. It gives order to our chaos. It assigns purpose to pain. It invites us into covenant rather than convenience. In a society driven by instant gratification and endless options, this kind of love feels almost alien. But it's the only love that lasts. Because love that runs at the first sign of trouble is not love, it's self-interest. And here's the mystery. We don't become less by loving this way. We become more. We become fuller, truer versions of ourselves. We grow in moral strength, emotional depth, and spiritual maturity. But there's tension. We're told to love unconditionally, yet we know the weight of betrayal, of disappointment, of broken trust. How do we love through imperfection? How do we give grace without losing ourselves? The answer lies not in pretending people are perfect, but in choosing to share the burden of being human, to love someone not despite their flaws, but because of the shared fragility that makes us all dependent on grace. This is the love the Spirit models. He doesn't love you because you're flawless. He loves you because He knows you're dust and still sees your destiny. So when you're tempted to believe you're too much to handle, too broken to be loved, remember, the Holy Spirit hasn't left. You've never been ghosted by God. His love stays. His love works. His love waits. And when we anchor our relationships in that kind of presence, flawed, yes, but faithful, we experience a kind of connection no storm can shake. Because real love doesn't vanish. Real love doesn't ghost. Real love stays, waits. We speak of love as if it's gentle, as if it's always soft hands and kind words. But if you've ever really loved someone, or let yourself be truly loved, you know the truth. Love isn't always tender. Sometimes, love wrecks you. Not to harm, but to heal. And healing, more often than not, feels like war. Because real love, God's kind of love, isn't designed to leave you comfortable. Psychologically, this is where transformation happens. Not in comfort zones, but in the brave act of staying present, staying honest, staying soft in a world that's trained us to harden. And that's what the Holy Spirit does when He begins to move in our relationships. He comes not to soothe our dysfunction, but to sanctify it. And that process, it feels violent. Not because God is cruel, but because healing requires tearing down the false self. The mask, the pride, the image we've constructed, and replacing it with truth. Love, at its core, is surgical. It goes beneath the surface. It cuts out the infection of entitlement and fantasy. It asks hard questions, but what rises in its place is holy. It's a love that looks like Christ, a love that bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. And on that ground, love grows roots. The Holy Spirit is not interested in superficial healing. He wants the real thing, the kind that leaves scars and stories, the kind that rebuilds character, the kind that turns heartbreak into holiness. So if love feels like fire right now, don't resist it. If it feels like everything inside you is being undone, maybe you're not being broken down. Maybe you're being built anew. Because real healing isn't soft. Real love isn't shallow. And when the Holy Spirit moves, it's never to coddle. Always to call you higher. You think it's your ex haunting your mind. You think it's the pain of what they said or didn't say that's keeping you up at night. But maybe, just maybe, it's not them at all. Maybe it's the Holy Spirit sitting quietly in the corners of your soul, waiting to be acknowledged. Not as the echo of what left, but as the presence of what remains. Because love, real love, is not a shadow that disappears. It's a divine imprint, and God doesn't ghost. We often interpret heartbreak as abandonment, and sometimes it is. But more often, it's a divine interruption, a shaking, a holy pause meant to wake us from the illusion that love is merely about being wanted, desired, or chosen by another broken human. We forget that love is first and foremost a responsibility, a calling, a force that shapes us more than it serves us. We have an opportunity when we find ourselves so afraid that someone can walk us back to safety, to happiness, to freedom, to prayer, to purity, to purpose. Sometimes it's a divine imperency. If you ever find yourself stuck in some hut, a force that shapes us more than it serves us, philosophically, love is not simply an emotion. It is a moral and spiritual axis around which our lives revolve. It demands truth, and truth always disrupts fantasy. When relationships fall apart, when the silence is deafening, and the pain lingers like a ghost, the Holy Spirit begins to speak, not always in comfort, but in clarity. He reminds you, love is not about escaping loneliness. It's about embracing meaning. Love that is rooted in God's Spirit never leaves you where it found you. It calls you into the wilderness, into the uncomfortable terrain of vulnerability, honesty, and spiritual responsibility. Psychologically, this kind of love rewires us. It confronts the attachment wounds, the trauma triggers, the egoic defenses we've spent a lifetime building. And that confrontation feels like pain, but it's really an invitation to healing. But when we reduce love to a hedonistic pursuit of pleasure, we short-circuit the very process that makes it sacred. We chase connection for validation, not transformation. We run to people expecting rescue, not refinement. And then we wonder why it falls apart. Because love that's built on neediness collapses. But love built on truth, even if it hurts, is what sets us free. And so here comes the Spirit, not dressed in romantic ideals, but cloaked in holy fire. Not here to mimic your attention. He's not here to fill the void with shallow comforts. He's here to confront you, to whisper, this ache, it's not abandonment, it's the altar. Will you bring your brokenness here? That's the tension, the ideal of unconditional love versus the brutal truth of imperfection. But true love sees those cracks and says, let me carry this with you, not because it's easy, but because it's right. To love someone not despite their flaws, but because of the shared burden of being is divine. It means seeing another soul, not as a project or a possession, but as a partner in the sacred struggle of becoming. And that kind of love, the kind modeled by the Spirit, isn't performative. It's permanent. So if you feel haunted today, ask yourself, is it really them you miss? Or is it God reminding you that love, His love, is still here, still working, still transforming you? Because the ghost in the room may not be who left you. It may be the one who's been trying to stay.